Dale Lewellyn here. This channel is to help people who have chronic morbid obesity, especially child-onset morbid obesity. I've had it myself for nearly all of my 77 years of life, but I think I've finally learned how to beat it. It took me 50 years to figure it out, and I'm still learning. And believe me, during that time, I did just about everything wrong you can think of. Now I'm finally having long-term success, using strategies that I really think can work for you too. Before we start, I want to tell you one very important thing. I have no hidden agenda. I just want to help people who want to lose a lot of weight because I know how hard it is to do and how much it can affect your life. In this cynical world, that's probably a little hard to believe, but it's true. This is not some program I'm trying to get you to sign up for so I can make a bunch of money from you. As we go along, I will mention some specific products that have been helpful to me, but I'm just doing that as an example. I'm not endorsing those products, and I don't care if you buy them or buy a competing product or don't buy anything at all. If you see ads in these videos, that money all goes to YouTube. I am not anywhere near big enough to participate in their partner program, and those are the only content creators who get a share of the ads. So I wish the ads weren't there, but there's nothing I can do about it. I also need to add the usual warning. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not offering you medical advice. See your doctor before starting any program designed to change the way you eat or exercise, and follow his or her advice. I've learned a lot about how to lose weight and keep it off. If what I've learned can help you, then that would make me really happy. All I'm trying to do is to tell you what works for me. Morbidly obese. I remember the first time I saw that on my chart in a doctor's office. I was really offended. I was paying this guy. He was supposed to be a medical professional. How could he insult me like that? But all he was saying was that my excess fat was serious enough that it was likely to be a factor in whatever I died from. That's not something that's very easy to hear, even if it's true. My body mass index was 48.5. If you don't know what that means, don't worry. But for now, just know that 48.5 is just about twice as high as is considered healthy. After 77 years, I think every cell in my body knows that being fat can be very painful, life-limiting, uncomfortable, embarrassing, unhealthy, and depressing. I'd give just about anything to be able to relive my life as a not-fat person. Of course, I can't do that. But at the age of 77, I weigh less than I did when I was 14. I've kept more than 100 pounds off for 20 years, and I weigh 150 pounds less than I did at my peak. I still have another 20 or so pounds to go, but I'm making steady progress. And I have no doubt that I've finally found the path to get there. What worked for me is a set of eating strategies I call cognitive weight control. We'll talk about why it's called that, but the important point is that you have to think about what you're eating and plan for it, rather than just letting your autopilot take over. In other words, you have to use cognition. You may think you already do that, but I think you'll see that this is different. I also want to be clear that this has nothing to do with another concept, sometimes used in weight control, called cognitive behavior therapy. That's something entirely different. Cognitive weight control is what finally worked for me, and I think it can work for you too. Hang in there and you'll see why. Human beings are supposed to have a built-in mechanism that tells them when to eat, what to eat, and most important of all, when to quit eating. I call this our autopilot. Well, to put it simply, my autopilot, and probably yours too, don't work. They may never have worked, or something about the way we lived may have broken them. It really doesn't matter. They don't work. That means you have to constantly exert cognitive control over what you're eating. You have to think about it and plan for what, when, and how much you will eat. Every time, for the rest of your life. I know that sounds awful, but it can be done in ways that won't make you crazy, and it will allow you to achieve and maintain your desired weight and live your life fairly normally. That's what this program is about. And actually think about it. What would you give to not be fat? Would you give up your job? Your house? Your money? What have you told yourself and others that you would do to not be fat? But you, having to plan what I'm going to eat all the time? That sounds like too much trouble. Really? Let me say up front, this is not a diet. Diets end someday. What I'm going to suggest to you is a new way to eat for the rest of your life. It's an eating program rather than a diet. And the idea of constant cognitive control over what you eat is the most important concept. When I hear people say they wish they could eat anything just like they did when they were a kid, I kind of just look at them mystified. That was never me. Never. If you're watching this, and I suspect it may never have been you either, I have always been fat, from soon after I was born until today. I've been more fat, and I've been less fat. But I've never been not fat. At least not yet. Of course, I don't know how much I weighed at every age. But I do know that I weighed 160 pounds when I was 10 years old, and went on my first diet, during which I lost 30 pounds. And I weighed 250 when I was 15. In college, I weighed in at about 280 pounds. By the time I was middle-aged, my waist was 57 inches, and I weighed more than 340 pounds. In my 50s, I hit a high of 368 pounds. I apologize for the blurry pictures, but I wasn't too keen on having my picture taken at that point. At age 57, I decided that 57 years was long enough. Actually, it was way too long, but that's where I was. This weight had affected enough of my life, and I was tired of carrying it around. I was always on hold. I excluded myself from so many things. There wasn't much I wanted to do because everything I tried ended up embarrassing me or not being fun because of my weight. I shut myself off because I got too tired, looked too ungainly, couldn't fit comfortably into whatever spaces were provided, wouldn't be able to find my size, and had countless aches and pains. People do things with their friends. What could you do with me? Go to a movie? Even then, if you had to sit next to me, it was probably going to be uncomfortable for both of us, because I'd spill over into your seat. I really felt like I was unacceptable. I've been told that in 1,000 ways every day of my life since I was 3, and I'd internalized the message. You are a failure. You are inadequate. You are gross and disgusting. You're unacceptable. I knew that the number of opportunities I'd missed because of how I felt about myself was just devastating. Frankly, my life had been a shadow of what it could have been. My joints were going. I had a high risk of diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. There's really no question that it had hurt my career. And don't even ask about my romantic life. If I didn't deal with this, I really couldn't expect a lot more productive years. I looked at people much older than I, who were much more active. They hiked and played tennis. They went bike riding and danced. They water skied. They rode motorcycles. They played golf. One of the really difficult things about chronic obesity is developing a sense of urgency that makes you want to do something about it now, rather than someday. A friend of mine likes to say, never put off until tomorrow what you can just as easily put off indefinitely. It's easy to feel that way about controlling your weight. It was time to do something. I'd certainly tried before, in some cases really hard. But somehow this felt different. It was now or never. And I couldn't even think about what never looked like. It had been a frustrating journey, this life as a fat person. I'd paid a big price. But until that point, I had never had long-term success in doing anything about it. The single hardest thing you have to do is to suspend your disbelief that's been built up by years of failure and be willing to really try again. As the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Everybody starts somewhere. If that means starting with a weight of 400 pounds or even more, so be it. There really isn't any other place you can start except where you are. I found something I wrote in 1999 that made me remember how sad and disheartened I was at my heaviest. I wrote there really aren't that many people with child-onset morbid obesity who've really solved the problem, taken off the weight and kept it off. Having set out on so many journeys with such high expectations, having traveled so far with such great optimism, and having always found that, in the end, the road was circular, is incredibly demotivating. That's hard for me to read even now. I'd always fought the battle but never won the war in the sense that I became a not fat person who could eat what their body told them it needed. I now accept that will never happen. I will never be the person who can go on autopilot and not think too much about what they're eating. Well, good to know. Everybody has their issues. This is one of mine. It's like the scene in the movie Parenthood where Jason Robards' character talks about raising his son.
And you know, it's not like that all ends when you're 18 or 21 or 41 or 61. It never ends. There is no end zone. You never cross the goal line, spike the ball, and do your touchdown dance. Never.
During the past 77 years, I wouldn't be surprised if I'd lost 500 pounds, but I always gained it back. That's because I went on diets. When the diets ended, I expected to be able to turn my autopilot loose to control what I was eating. Big mistake. My autopilot doesn't work. Even though I have a few more pounds to lose, I'm no longer classified as obese. And I've kept more than 100 pounds off for many, many years. I've had enough success that the quality of my life has changed dramatically. I'm now 77 years old, 6 feet tall, and weigh 216 pounds, less than when I was 14. I really think the system I use can work for you if you have a serious fat problem that you're struggling to control. In the next few sessions, I'm going to explain how it works. So if you're up for it, subscribe to my channel and listen to what I have to say. It may help you. At least I sincerely hope so. I also want to say that I have a strange fascination with limericks. I will be including fat-related limericks at the end of each session. If you know of others, I'd love to hear them. Although I do find them amusing and hope you will enjoy them too, to me they also very poignantly express some of the pain that goes with being fat. And every one of them is about something that actually happened to me or to a close friend. So here's the first one. On a beautiful day in July, the thermometer reached a new high. Tom's sighs made him sweat till his clothes were all wet, and the smell killed 2 passers-by. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next session when I'll overview the Cognitive Weight Control Program.